So let's run through the 3D stereoscopic. First thing is it's native 3D, so Prepar3D is doing all the work, so it will work on any video card. So the way it does this is uses two different view windows, does the compression either vertically or horizontally depending whether you want to use side by side or over under, and your 3D TV monitor or projector will decode that and display that in 3D. So in the 3D tab we've got options for which format you're going to use. So there's the side by side, over under. Both of these can be in either full screen mode or windowed mode. And there's also an option, an uncompressed option, if you do want to use this with VR headsets. If you are using VR headsets, you're probably better off going with one of the other commercial type packages for doing that, but you're welcome to test this as well. So I've selected my side by side, and then to activate the 3D views we get those in the add-ons menu. So we've got native 3D views. There's actually two lists of them here. We can only add 16 entries per list, so it'll continue with the second list. So if I go to virtual cockpit, so what's happened here is it's set up the virtual cockpit with stereoscopic. These two views are linked so that when you pan one the other will pan, and if you look closely you will note they do have the offset. So if we look here and over here, we're seeing slightly different views which are offset for your eye point. So in the controls here for cockpit views, there's the amount of eye point offset, the difference between your left and your right eye. So if I adjust this to 0, that's you don't have any 3D at all at the moment, and if we move it all the way here it'll be exaggerated. It's probably too much like that, it will strain your eyes. But you find the setting that works best with your television or monitor or whatever you're using. So the other types of views we've got the cockpit views. There's external views. So if we look at, let's say, some of these angle views, which will be outside views defined for this aircraft. So that's one of the exterior views. The custom views that you define using multi-tool are also available, because those are just offsets to exterior and interior views. So if we go to one of these ones which are offset on this camera, so there we go with another exterior view. The spot views also work in 3D. They are a little bit more difficult to keep in focus. Setting of the camera height in using SimConnect is not possible, so there's a little bit of trickery has to be pulled off to keep spot view up and down in focus, but we'll just show you that. Part of the cameras that we installed in the camera setup were two special spot cameras, especially to make the spot work better in 3D. They have the vertical panning slowed down to enable the control system that I'm using to keep in focus. So if we go on to our spot view, and we'll choose the XYZ ref lock spot, so that's the custom one for 3D. So left and right panning, that's fine, that'll stay in focus nicely in 3D. If you pan up and down, then one view will move and then the other will do some synchronization, and hopefully that'll get nicely back into 3D sync. If you notice it's still a bit blurry, you can just give it a little flick and it'll have another go at doing that synchronization. It's fairly reliable. Unfortunately, there's that little bit of lag for it to work itself out. If you are wanting the spot type view like what we're looking, there is also an aircraft camera which will give you most of the camera type movements at spot view. So it is the exterior track view, which is this one. And as we see, it keeps the aircraft in the centre of the view just like Spot does, but the nice thing is it doesn't need to go through that tuning cycle like the Spot view does, because we can set the camera height directly using SimConnect. So the other options for the display is the over-under rather than side-by-side. So if we select that, you do have to just re-trigger the 3D to get it to update. So there's over-under mode. Now you'll note there's a black bar in the middle of the screen here. That black bar basically matches the height of, we've got a 22 pixel loss up top of the screen where this Lockheed Martin banner is, and so we need an equivalent height that's not used in the middle, so that's what that is. The full screen mode, after changing any of these modes, the side by side or the over under, you do want to just re-trigger the view you were looking at to get it to set up the split on the screen correctly. So once we go Alt Enter to go into full screen mode here, then each of these views is taking up exactly half that vertical screen. The tick box here is if we drop back into 2D, so we'll turn the 3D off there. What it does is it strips off the menu items for 3D, but if you want to turn them back on, you just click on this section in the menu here, and it will also revert your 3D selection back from 2D to whatever your default was. So it'd been my default, so it's gone back onto that. The tick boxes down here. So not all views are suitable for 3D. Things like flyby view doesn't work, and top down and things like that aren't much use. So the first tick box is, rather than jumping into a different category using the S key or the controller that you've got bound, then you can use that same controller or the S key to move backward through the list of 3D views. Your A key or your forward through the views will work as normal. So I'll just demonstrate that. So with that tick box ticked, A is going to move forward through this list, and S is going to move, or whatever controller you've got bound to next category is going to move backward through that list, rather than moving into a category that includes views that aren't going to work in 3D. So if I'm in here, if I click on my A key, it's going to jump into the locked spot view, and then the next view would be the spot view, and the one after that was the exterior tracking view, and so on. If I press the S key, I'll go backward to the spot, like so. The second option is probably not necessary now. It was before I developed the focusing routine for the spot views. It basically tries to lock out the up and down panning in the spot views, but now there's a focus thing. That's probably not necessary to tick that. The pause for non-hotkey view changes is when we saw it opening and shutting views when changing. You might not want your aircraft still to be flying at that point, given that you're finding it a bit difficult to watch where you're going, so that will put it into pause until you're ready to go again. Switch views using, if I need to have one or the other view selected, there's two ways of jumping between them. There's control tabbing and there's clicking on it. unless you've got any good reason to change it, then just leave it set to Control Tab. The 3D view separation, so we looked at that for the eye point. There's a second slider for the exterior views. So the other ones update immediately. This one should update, but if it doesn't, then click on the apply button. So you can see it's making slight eye point difference changes by moving that. So the other things we've got in here is there's 3 methods of synchronizing the 2 views. The first one, simultaneous, is what I recommend you use. So simultaneous, basically I've taken over the pan commands, and I know when you're using your controller pan, and I'll send out the correct heading or XYZ information to both views at once, and that should keep it nice and synchronized. The second one, follow, is not so good. It'll allow one view to move and it'll pick up that one has moved and the other one will update within a very short space of time, but there will be a tiny little bit of lag and it might be slightly noticeable. It does still work fairly well though. So the third one, linking, only works with versions 3.3.2 and below. It has been removed from 3.3.5 and above. Lockheed Martin took it out. You can still use it for these ones, but I would recommend you use the one that I'm developing now, which is a simultaneous one. Now, because custom panning has been implemented, there's factors on how fast you want your panning to go. So these sliders speed it up or down. So this is my panning at the moment. I'm in a spot view and I can make that faster. And if we go to the one of the interior views, we'll go to virtual cockpit. I'll show you that. So normal speed and fast speed, and the same with vertical. We've got faster and slower options there as well. Now, one of the things I've built in, given that I've got a bit of control here, is when you approach within 5 degrees of directly ahead, it'll slow down. It just allows you to line straight ahead a bit better. So if we pan around, you'll see it slow down when we start to approach dead ahead. So it just gives you a bit more control for looking straight ahead. These eye point views will work with in 3D. So there's one I just set up as a demo the other day. You can select them from where I just selected it, and they'll also be in that list where we're looking at. That was the one we just selected. Any of these. Again in Stereoscopic. If anything goes wrong and it's not responding the way it should, and then go into the multi-tool prepared menu, do a stop and reset views. It'll shut down the spare 3D views, it'll go back into 2D and you can start again.